In Rivers State, the two legislative chambers, that's the Senate and the House of Representatives, made recommendations on the way forward. The Senate appealed to the president to allow it to invoke its constitutional powers to enable it set up a joint National Assembly committee to oversight the affairs of the administration in Rivers State, assuming legislative functions and not the Federal Executive Council as proposed by the president. While the legislators want the president to review or terminate the state of emergency at any time within the 6 months based on progress made about peace. Now, both chambers suggested the setting up of an ad hoc committee composed of eminent Nigerians to mediate between the opposing parties in the Rivers conflict.
Well, for more on these recommendations, let's bring in Senior Fellow of the Center for Democracy and Development, Jibril Ibrahim. Thank you so much for being here tonight.
Thank you.
Before we get to the recommendations by the National Assembly, there have been some developments I'd like to get your reactions on. For instance, barely 24 hours after resuming, the sole administrator has been meeting with some stakeholders. He has now announced that he has received the seized funds by the Supreme Court to the state, although the Attorney General of the Federation had confirmed that to me during his press brief. But critics call the sole administrator a stranger and an imposter. Some say he's even illegal. Do you think his legitimacy or the lack of it thereof may hinder his work to stabilize Rivers State? Also, we've heard from Governor Sim Fubara, who has not been seen since this state of emergency, and he has denied all the allegations leveled against him. Does it exonerate him and indict the federal government? What are your thoughts?
I think it's very clearly a battle that has been going on in Rivers State, where the stakes are very high, and federal forces have coalesced to smash that Governor Fubara. And so far, it appears they have had great success because all the issues they've canvassed for against him have been granted by various agencies and forces that have intervened in the matter. And even the question of the Supreme Court saying they are not releasing the money, they have not reversed their position. They have not assessed whether this transition has occurred. So how come the money has been released with such fast moves? It means clearly that this is a political game of high stakes. And what we are seeing is the results of a proud winner telling the nation, I've done what I wanted to do.
It's quite interesting you put it that way. Let me even stay on that. The role of all parties concerned in this matter, how salutary would you say? Both the president himself, Fubara, the suspended governor, Nyesom Wike, who we've been told, I mean, the issue has absolutely nothing to do with him, at least if we're to go by what the Attorney General said in his speech. How would you describe, the role they've played so far that's led to this, before we even talk about the recommendations of the National Assembly?
You see, we need to learn to be honest on this matter. We've seen Wike on television many times saying that this is a war he's engaged in, and he's been reeling off his victories one after the other. 1, 2, 3. Somebody to say he's not a factor means they are trying to toy with our intelligence. Let's state the facts as we know it. This is a problem that had a clear history that's known to every Nigerian. Fubara was an ally and suppletive of Wike when Wike was governor. He was placed there as somebody to do the bidding of Wike. He became governor and decided to assert his independence. Wike came out on TV and said, obey me or I will smash you. Fubara said, I will not obey you. And then 4 sets of forces acting in unison worked to smash Fubara. First of all, Wike himself made demands. The very first meeting when President Tinubu intervened, they didn't give Fubara an opportunity to say how this thing will be resolved. He was given an agreement where all the demands of Wike were put and none of his demands were there, and told he must sign. He signed, he couldn't implement. So Wike came out clearly in that and won his battle. The second issue is at the level of the president himself, who throughout his interventions in this matter have always laid blame with one party, Fubara, and never mentioned any issue about his own ally. Third issue, the judiciary intervened in this thing. It went right to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court granted all of Wike's prayers and rejected all of Fubara's prayers. So the judiciary became an active player, and they also worked towards smashing Fubara. The final actor was the National Assembly. All the legal opinions I've had said President had no powers to remove the governor. They removed it. The National Assembly decided to support the president's move of removing him, in spite of the fact that they knew they didn't have the numbers to provide 2/3 majority for that removal. Yes. Because they didn't have the numbers, they decided to disobey the Constitution flagrantly and do a voice vote where there are no numbers. The Constitution says count those who say yes, count those who say no. And for the Senate, you needed 72. Yeah. For the House of Representatives, you needed 240. How can you do a vote and you don't give us numbers? It means in law and in respect of our Constitution, there is no vote from the National Assembly supporting the state of emergency. In that case, how can you now suddenly decide, in spite of the Supreme Court ruling, that you've returned this money, everything has been resolved, when we all saw that there was no vote? So I think we need to learn to tell ourselves the truth on this matter. It is state power being used in a naked way in a partisan battle in which all these forces, the presidency, the Federal Executive Council, the National Assembly, and the Supreme Court all came together with a plan to smash this government they didn't want.
You're a very lucky man if you say you've had only one interpretation of the matter on the ground, that the president does not have constitutional powers. For some of us, it's been very confusing because even lawyers, senior lawyers, cannot agree on the Constitution and what the judgment, the Constitution says on the matter. Right. But let me ask you, can there be genuine reconciliation if the FCT minister continues to be absolved from any wrongdoing? The National Assembly has now set up a committee as one of its recommendations of eminent Nigerians to bring warring parties to the table. But if the president, his Attorney General of the Federation, do not see the FCT minister as a party to this crisis, do you think that the National Assembly does recognize the role of the FCT minister, and can there be that genuine reconciliation?
Well, for the first point you raised, what all lawyers agree on is that there is no specific provision in Section 305 of the Constitution that allows the president to remove a governor. There is no lawyer who has said there's that provision. Some lawyers have argued it is implied.
Yes.
But if it is implied and not stated,
then it's not
it is not a point in law. Yeah. So that is very clear, and that's why I'm saying all lawyers are clear. On this issue of reconciliation, I've already outlined the four forces that came together, and they've won all their prayers. They have achieved all their objectives. So when they say, okay, we'll set up a committee for reconciliation, it's what's called poetry. Say, okay, we've won all our points, so let's give some words that will show, oh, we want peace, we want reconciliation. And we are supposed to smile and say, yes, tell it to the birds. That's all I can say on that.
So, still, I mean, staying on that, the National Assembly, or let's say the House, actually made some recommendations that eminent Nigerians will come together to mediate, and also they recommended that the president should review the emergency rule, and that in a situation where peace is secured before the expiration of 6 months, the governor and the state assembly will be reinstated. What do you make of that? Do you think the damage has been done already and there's no way forward, or do you think there's hope? Based on, I mean, that's a question that's already been asked. What do you think democracy as a whole is this a setback for Nigeria's democracy, or is it a learning curve that we can actually, make progress from?
I think there's a real threat to Nigerian democracy, and the success of this move by these four forces that coalesced shows that in this country today, no governor is safe. Any governor can be removed with an allegation of threat to peace and stability. And even in issues where that governor doesn't have a mandate, as in the case of Fubara, he's been accused of allowing insecurity to spread, while he has no mandate over security forces. The person that has mandate over the security forces and the responsibility to stop this insecurity is saying, oh, somebody else didn't do my job, therefore I'm removing him from office. So this is what is called the use of naked power, because you feel you have reached a position where you are in total control of available forces, and therefore you can do what you want. This means this search for reconciliation and review to return the governor is all part of the poetry I'm talking about. Nobody is supposed to take that seriously, and when they say it, they are saying it in a way that makes it clear, I'm just saying it because I should say something nice, but please don't listen to me. I'm not serious about this. It's just words that you say after you have smashed somebody and you feel you have to say a couple of nice words to reduce the violence of the destruction you have done on that person. But I think there's one issue that they are not looking at.
Right. Okay.
In all these issues about a fight to finish, the victims are the people of Rivers State. They've elected somebody as their governor. They have shown significant support for that person. They have shown their deep unhappiness at the way in which these four forces came together to smash a power that they feel represents their interests. And I think when we play politics with such extreme intentions, we sometimes forget the most important factor, which is there are Nigerian citizens who are victims of this, and they may have a limit for how long they will continue to tolerate it.
In other words,
this thing, the stakes are very high because there is a relevant date, and that relevant date is February 2027. There will be elections on that date, and the issue is who will deliver the votes of Rivers. We all know that's the issue. So if you tell me, oh, we'll see if we can resolve this in less than 6 months and return to status quo ante, I'll say, well, what happened to the strategic objective? Unfortunately for me, I'm a political scientist, so I look at the forces at play. And the forces at play are clear. The objectives that are targeted are extremely clear. And where they want to reach is known to every Nigerian.
Which is the
There's
root
no
cause,
secret
the
over
root
this
cause
issue.
of the crisis.
Yeah.
That's what you're talking about.
That's right.
Okay, so, I mean, what it really is the way forward? We still need to ask. I mean, how can this crisis be resolved in a way that favors the people of Rivers State, not just the people of Rivers State, Nigerians as a whole, and also address the issue of politics of impunity that seems to be, taking a whole life of its own in Nigeria?
The way forward is to go back to political science. I've been doing it for 50 years, so that's the only thing I know. The first issue is that Nigerians are deeply committed to federalism as a political system. In a federal system, the president cannot remove a governor he's quarreling with. When you do that, you are threatening the very foundations of federalism. Secondly, in this whole issue, there are citizens who have concerns and who are opposed to some of these actions. By continuing to act as if citizens don't matter and have no voice and have no ability to act, you are taking a risk of pushing the country towards a precipice. I call on the president to think about the political implications in terms of risk analysis. And that risk analysis will point out to the president that you may push these people to a point of no return. It is not in anybody's interest to push this matter to a point of no return. So please reflect, Mr. President. Turn back those wheels of victory and look for a genuine pathway to peace. And that pathway is clear. Every day, Wike is on TV saying he owns politics in River State. And he will smash anybody who challenges that.
Do we end the
and that
Wike
is a minister in this cabinet. So don't tell me it's difficult to find a reconciliation when you have a key actor whose behavior you can control because he works for you.
Well, I guess we'll have to leave it there. Jibril Ibrahim is Senior Fellow at the Center for Democracy and Development. Thank you so much for joining us on Newsnight.